Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm I forgot something. Last video, I mentioned about my branding change, and I was talking about a new intro, and then I completely forgot to put it on here. So we're just gonna pause, let it play, and then let's go. So I was talking to a client of mine, and they requested that they asked if I was open to being sponsored to perform a series of Halo videos. And so this client, it's Ristel IT from Austria. The guy's name is Florian. He's a fantastic person to know, really good guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a great MSP owner. And he's actually paying for me to do these videos. Most of my other videos, I think all of my other videos have been non-sponsored at this point. And this is the first sponsored video, and it's not even sponsored by the vendor. It's sponsored by another MSP who is looking to put more content out into the community. What he literally told me was that he was looking for this content in the community, and there wasn't anything really good that had a concise, um, summary, or not even a summary, but a concise setup series on how to set up HaloPSA. And so he just wanted to put it out there, make it public, so that it would be beneficial to the community as well as to him. So I want to call out to him and say thank you, Florian, for sponsoring this and allowing me to put it out on the community. With that being said, what is this series exactly? This series is going to be start to finish setting up HaloPSA in a structured format. So we're going to be trying to maintain a consistent cadence of videos that are going to come out. If you've engaged me with HaloPSA implementations and you've been on calls with me, where we may or may not cover every single detail that we've talked about on the specific calls, but we're going to be trying to accomplish the same kind of thing, so that essentially you could just take the series and set up Halo by yourself, and then only reach out if you have a question, or you can pay for a smaller number of hours, or maybe the same number of hours, but use them for other things beyond the Halo setup and training. We can get through the actual implementation faster. With that being said, I am going to try to cover a very specific structure. We are going to try to go through things in a way that has a holistic view, all the way from the foundation, all the way up to the detailed minutia of all the various things, and so that we can actually understand the design and how Halo works, and that way you can build things yourself and understand how it works and things like that. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is going to be the first video in the series. It's specifically for the HaloPSA overview and admin perspective. It's going to be similar to the Navigation 101 video on my channel, but it's going to be more about an admin and less about a user. And we may go a little long as we cover all the various areas, from navigating and finding our way around Halo from an admin side point of view. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm on a new laptop, and so A, I don't know if everything's going to work, and B, I don't know where anything is, so it's fun to find. But I think I got it. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing that we should know is, by the way, this is a brand new instance I just set up for this call. So Rising Tide Training at HaloPSA.com. It's brand new. And we're going to try to configure from start to scratch, including accounting integrations, RMM integrations, anything that I can get a trial for, anything that I can connect, anything I get a dev instance for. I'm going to connect to it, show you how it works, and we're going to end up walking away with a fully built MSP inside of Halo. For the most part, we're not going to talk about like a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we're going to try to keep it to most common challenges MSPs have. And just give you enough ideas so that you can build out around your own specific needs if you need to. Okay, so welcome, Mendy. Hello, Mendy. Welcome to HaloPSA. This message that you get is going to be about setting up your account, making sure that you're able to get through it. Now, there's an X button here. We're going to go ahead and hit Get Started, and it's going to take us through initial setup steps. I'm going to actually back out of here. And we're going to just jump straight back to our dashboard. Okay, so our dashboard is our welcome screen. The dashboard is going to be where we can easily navigate around. We can see our agent check-in, how are you today, and asks for different things. And we can see our account, our status, as well as our greeting. And then we finally have our date and time. And then down below, we have a dashboard of things that are happening inside of the system. Out of the box, HaloPSA will give you demo data. When you sign up for a trial and you sign up for your instance, you're getting an actual instance that you can use with demo data that comes with it, including a start guide, feedback on tickets, and things like that. This is your dashboard, and it is customizable both globally as well as per agent. When we talk about an agent, we are talking about your internal employees, the users of HaloPSA that are your MSP employees, your technicians, your sales representative, your account managers, anyone who's logging into HaloPSA as a MSP employee or as co-managed IT will be considered an agent. So this is the dashboard. Inside of the dashboard, we can navigate to what's called areas inside of Halo. Mostly when we're talking about areas, we're talking about ticket-specific areas like service desk, projects, opportunities, and things like that. But these are technically all areas too. And so when you're on a call with me, if we're training or we're talking about things, I'll tell you to navigate to the calendar area or the assets area, the items area. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the areas here or over here on the side. Now, by default, Halo tries to keep the demo system that you get sandboxed out of the that you get configured out of the box to look modern and flashy and nice and stylish, which is why we've got an extended menu here, which doesn't always exist, and you may not even know that you can do that. It's a fairly new feature. And we can see that if we go to My Account Preferences, and we can see our appearance is set profile color, our theme and application color, our navigation menu display, and whether or not a high contrast mode is enabled. Additionally, if we go to, I think it's home screen, we can see a side menu dashboard potentially, and we can also see the dashboard for the home screen. And then finally, screen layouts will give us the ability to configure our client details screen layout and our navigation menu screen layout. And so that's what controls a few other things we'll talk about. One of the most important things to know about Halo, when you're going around configuring settings, you will either have an edit button or you will immediately be able to make changes to the settings. I don't have to, I will either be able to immediately start clicking in and changing my themes and stuff, or I'll have to click the edit button. If I'm clicking the edit button, there will be a save button. If I'm not clicking the edit button, there is no save. The changes happen immediately. So, therefore, before we actually go ahead and make changes, because you can change things without you realizing, what we want to do is turn on config change tracking. This is done under the advanced settings. Very first step you should be doing upon getting your HaloPSA trial is go to the advanced settings under configuration area and search for config change tracking. And notice it's not turned on by default. Go ahead and click that box, turn it on. This will not be a foolproof solution, but it will give you an idea of changes that are being made. And so that way you can go ahead and roll back if necessary or recreate them if you need to. You cannot roll back every single change, and not every change will necessarily be clear, but for the most part, it's better than nothing, and it will give you an idea of what did happen. Notice the advanced settings is one of those areas where I did not have to click an edit button. I just changed something and it was immediate. With that being said, while we're here, let's go through other advanced settings and talk about what they do and whether or not we want them on or off. Notice that our application color is a nice non-eye blinding color. And again, we saw that under My Account Preferences, Appearance, and we can see the application color is 202530. This is not the default color. If I were to edit this, and notice that my application color is here. If I flip this to default or use global setting, it's going to disappear because that is the original color of Halo. which is eye blinding. And I'll show you in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And we're going to see our Halo theme change to this very, very bright color that sears your eyes. And so step number one, if you want to get your user or agents who are going to be logging into Halo to not hate Halo as soon as they log in, go ahead and change this color to be something more like your branding. And immediately, notice there's no save button, your colors will change. And upon refreshing, I'm back to my normal color upon using custom color. Another thing that you can do is change your main screen page size, and this will be based off the tables, many items per table load. I would say try to keep it below 100, 150 or something like that. Definitely don't go up as high as 500 or anything like that. This will be a global setting and it may be configurable per agent. I don't remember. But the point is that when this happens, when this loads, it's going to query the API for all those items and it will slow the system down depending on how many custom fields and values and API calls are being made for those items. It can have a negative impact on your performance. So make sure you can bump this to a high number, but if you start seeing things going slow, come back and bump that a little bit lower. Pagination happens for a reason. There are some other options here. Only show icons for action buttons on mobile, always show menu when opening a new tab. I would make sure this is checked. By default, it is not checked. And then it gets really annoying when you open a ticket in a new window and you see just that ticket. Navigation menu display by default is large icon with labels. However, again, for the sandbox out of the box demo, that is hidden because it looks nicer. On the other hand, if you're brand new to Halo and you're not sure how this stuff works, we want to make sure that actually shows default so that you can actually know what those different areas are. Otherwise, you're going to be having a hard time finding your way around to the different areas. So at least now we get the labels and icons. And again, if your system, as the first admin who signs into Halo, you are going to get a different view than what all of your other agents are going to get. Your theme color is going to be different. Your icons are going to be different. Potentially, I think your screen layout was actually the same. So that may not be different because that is pulled from global, and we're going to go talk about that in a moment. Other than that, we've got the ability to display a new ticket button in the navigation menu. Sometimes this can get confusing, especially if you've got different ticket areas. We're going to come back to that and talk about that later. Browser tab renames. If you're on an older system and you've never gone back and looked at this setting, please go change it. The original setting was do not rename. The new setting is to rename tabs based on breadcrumb, and this will help you because right now, I guarantee you all of your tabs are opening up as HaloPSA in the title bar, and it is impossible for you to find where you were. If you rename those browser tabs, they will immediately start updating to reflect the location of where you are inside of Halo, and it will make your life a lot easier. Some other settings here, 24-hour clock, you can turn that off if you want to. The time field input type, this is personal preference. I like the drop down. You may like the browser default input better. It's up to you to try and play with that. And this is where you'd go change that if you want to. Some other settings that I really want to focus on in the advanced section is the security settings. Allow HaloPSA remote support, access, and single sign-on bypass option. This is something that if you turn off and then you need help and you can't log in, Halo can't log in either. And so you may want to turn that on, you may want to turn that off, you may want to have some sort of signed agreement that talks about when they will log in or not log in. But yeah, that's a setting that if you turn off and you can't log into your Halo, Halo can't log in either, and now you are stuck. You may want to update your password require strength to strong, and you may want to force everyone to use two-factor authentication. If you are forcing two-factor authentication, you may want to come back and say, don't allow them to FA via email or SMS, which means that they have to register their two-factor. Then we can say new agents must set up Authenticator app and new users must set up Authenticator app, and then allow Halo mobile access. And then finally, bypass Halo 2FA if logging in with single sign-on. This way, you won't get prompted for 3FA or MFA if you already have 2FA, especially if your single sign-on is going to 365 and you have conditional access or MFA policy on your 365 login or your Google account. You don't need Halo prompting for 2FA at that point. You only need it for when you're doing a local login. So I would go ahead and check that as well. Finally, you have the ability to impersonate admins and users. You may want to turn that off at some point. But initially, during setup, it's very useful to have for you to be able to test permissions within Halo. This checkbox, I actually don't like checking. There's something else I prefer to do, which I'll show you when we get to the point of setting up single sign-on, but I actually like leaving this unchecked because it is kind of annoying to have to get back in as an admin if your single sign-on's not working and you need to be able to log back in. So just forcing 2FA and then hiding the login form. And again, I'll show you that later on from there. I like turning this off as an admin. Sure, as an admin, I can go back and turn on and give me back those privileges again. But for the most part, that's an audited thing, and I would rather just leave it off, and then those admins have to be granted explicit permission for certain things, as opposed to just automatically getting all of them. I'm going to leave it on for right now. But again, once you're through with your setup, your permissions are all set up, ready to go, everything's ready, and you're going live, I would encourage you to come back here, untick it, test everything else, and go from there. Other things that we want to talk about, if you get to the point of increasing any of your ID numbers to match things, you can do it from here. Attachment settings, load images via the API, please, and allow Microsoft Office to be viewed in the browser. And notice that once that's been changed, it gets locked. You can't unchange it. And this will allow Microsoft Office files to be previewed in the browser so that you don't have to download first to open them. And now if I just refresh this page and scroll down to that place again, we should see those attachments are being pulled via the API. And this can be updated to S3 storage at some point. Let's go ahead and keep searching down. We've got the ability to make some search changes. I wouldn't really touch any of those right now. We have the ability to set a refresh period. Right now it's at 2 minutes, and your batch size for sending bulk emails, again, 2 emails at a time right now. Screen layout profiles. This is where we can start designing the look and feel of Halo, okay? We have the ability to do 2 types of entities right now, client and navigation menu. If we go into the navigation menu and look at the default layout, we can see that all these buttons and the areas here are defined here, and we can see what settings they show up, show an overflow, or whether or not we want to hide them completely. So for example, we don't want to ever see our assets. I'm just going to hide them. Doesn't make it impossible for us to get to, doesn't remove permissions, it just removes the button from the menu. And so you can really start tailoring your design for your service desk, for your account managers, and so on and so forth, to really be given the areas that they really need, as opposed to being making them flooded with too many options that they don't or are not ever going to use. If you go to the client, you can start designing layouts for your clients based off of similar kind of behavior, where we can decide which tabs to pin to the sidebar. And so I can come in here and say, we're going to pin activity. I think I can pin. Nope, can't pin that one. We're going to pin, I'm not even sure what else we can pin here, actually. Boom, I'm going to pin services to sidebar 1 and 2. We can pin custom fields. You can build your own custom tab and pin those to sidebar 1 or sidebar 2. And so that way they're always listed on the side, which I'm going to show you in a moment, as opposed to having to go search for those tabs. And then of course you can reorganize them. And so that way you have the ability to design, again, layouts that would be based off of a role, which tabs are most important for a user, which ones they want to see first, and so on and so forth. With that being said, remember there was an edit button in order to start changing this stuff. And so I have a save button. I'm going to back out. I'm not going to save these changes. And we're going to go back to advanced settings. And we're going to continue going down from screen layout profiles. Once we have the screen layout profiles, we also have the deletion settings. I would immediately turn this on. Maybe if you're a gambling person, we can leave it off for the demo, for your build outs and testing, because it can get annoying. As long as you remember to turn it on before you go live, please. Once you have that, I would uncheck this as well. Both of these checkboxes would need to be modified. And again, you can leave it on or leave it off for your build out and testing, but please, before you go live, go and change those settings. The deleting notifications, I don't really care about. Config tracking, we already turned on. The backend services, we're not going to touch this yet, but this is going to be stuff that's coming later on. We're not going to talk about it. and keep moving past that, we have the ability to record ticket views, which I would recommend you turn on. Use ID as an additional subject tag check for ticket matching. I would recommend you turn off. And then, of course, we can set this to HTML Designer if you want to. I personally don't like it. I prefer the rich editor. It's up to you. And then we have the ability to add reactions to tickets, and we'll come back to that, as well as agent check-ins. And this is where we can customize those responses, which were the positive, fine, happy, those things we saw on the Halo dashboard as soon as we logged in. Those are what those responses are. And then the last and a final thing we have is something called lookup codes, which there used to be by default a lookup code of impact and a lookup code of urgency that was unknown. I would go ahead and delete those two lookup codes. It's going to tell you lookup code is dangerous and deleting them are unrecoverable and so on and so forth. Get rid of them. You should not have a ticket of an impact type of unknown. The point of triage and the point of having tickets is that you know the impact type. Is it one user? Is it more than one user? Is it the entire company? It's very simple. And then urgency is the same exact thing. You should not have an unknown urgency ever. It's either going to be low, medium, or high. And these are urgencies and impacts that are defined by the user, your customer, your contact who is submitting the ticket. I cannot access my accounting package. The entire company is down. You now have an impact and you have an urgency, especially if they say something like, I need to run payroll by 3 p.m. I need to cut a check by 1 p.m. I have reports I need to provide to the accountant tomorrow, right? You now have an urgency that is classified. So the user can tell you the urgency and the impact, number of users impacted. Is it just me? Is it the entire company? Is it everyone? And you can get specific names when they say things. So people like to say, well, the users are going to make stuff up because they want things to be done faster. The matrix that is designed for impact and urgency to set the priority is purposely created in a way so that the priority is set in a fair manner, unless the entire company is impacted and it's a high urgent issue, high urgency issue. That's a weird sentence to say. The priority will never be critical. In order for it to be critical, both have to be true. And so they can say it's a critical issue, but if it's only impacting them, it's never going to get above high. And we're not saying we're not going to touch it quickly, or it's not going to be escalated to a technician sooner. It just allows us to properly say that it's not a system down, business stopped problem. And so therefore, it doesn't cut the queue ahead of something like a server going down. So by default, out of the box, impact and urgency, there is an unknown value. Under the lookup codes, come here and just delete the unknown, please. That is the last thing I'll say regarding the advanced settings for right now. I actually lied. There's one more thing I'm going to talk about. Under the lookup codes, there's also a dynamic email exclude from dynamic email lists. Just come in here and add some new ones. Just put every mailbox address that is your support mailbox or any mailbox that's going to exist in your Halo, just load it up, address one by one. So for example, if I have help@risingtidegroup.net, I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to add the next one. If I've got support@risingtidegroup.net. Now, this is not something that's essential for you to do right away, but it's definitely something you want to do prior to you getting emails into the system, just in case. It's not critical, but it's a fail-safe. In the event, for some reason, one of your email addresses are included on an email into your system, this will prevent Halo from automatically including it back out on a CC so that you don't create a ticket loop for fun. So you just come in here, you click add, and just create new ones as you go. All right. With that being said, let's move into out of the advanced settings and back to our dashboard. So these dashboards exist in the system just like any other dashboard. So if you go click on your dashboard area here, you'll see that you get prompted for choosing a dashboard, and you've got like home screen, sales home screen red versus app color versus just sales dashboard. And you've got service desk dashboard versus service desk home screen. These are just standard dashboards that exist. And that's what you're choosing when you go ahead and click on your preferences to set the dashboard for your user under My Account. Okay. Let's talk about the ticket areas for a moment. All right, so I mentioned that these are technically really referred to as areas, but everything is an area essentially. The reason why I said that is because these areas are configurable. If I come in here and look at your service desk, I can see the tickets that exist under that service desk. I can see a specific view of how I'm looking at tickets on the side. And so this is like my ticket navigation bar. It's not my app navigation bar or area navigation bar. I don't even know what to call this. But this is like in the inner pane of viewing tickets. This is the view that I'm currently looking at. It's called tickets by team up here. And you can see that if you hover, you can see view selection. And so that's the selected view that I'm looking at. I can see my teams, and I can see my technicians in each team. And then I have the view of tickets for each agent. And so I've got one for Amir, one for James, I've got 4 for Mendy, and I've got like a counter next to each one. Tell me how many tickets are in each view or each queue or whatever you want to call it, each list. These areas, the service desk area, the projects area, and the opportunities area are basically all configurable. And so let's go talk about what that looks like. I'm going to jump into configuration, and we're going to go look at the tickets section inside of configuration area, and we're going to talk about the areas configuration. Notice we have projects, and there's one more that we can't see right now, and that is called the opportunities area. The opportunities area is actually special. It is a default out of the box area that you cannot change, but you can build your own custom ones. And we'll talk about more of that in a moment. One of the reasons why opportunities and tickets is special, because tickets is really the entity, the underlying entity of everything in the system. And so one of my favorite things to talk about is how everything is relative in the English language. We're talking about relativity in terms of terminology that gets used. When we say a ticket, it could be a ticket that's an entity within the service desk, but it could be the overall or underlying ticket in Halo, which could either be a project, a service desk, or an opportunity. So it can get really confusing when we say that. But for Halo purposes, when we say a ticket, we could either be talking about the underlying record in the database, or we could be talking about the specific entity within the specific ticket area. So it can go back and forth. What they did is they split opportunities up, even though they're all tickets. They split the opportunities out into a separate area. There is certain configurations and certain fields that are opportunity special and will only ever show up when you're dealing with an opportunity type of ticket. So let's go look at our ticket types, for example, and I'll show you what I mean. So our ticket types under the tickets area has a million different types of tickets, not really a million, just 25, that can be used out of the box, and you can build your own and customize them and so on. If we were to edit something like incident or even make a brand new type of ticket, we'll see a use case dropdown. And that use case will ask you for 3 items: tickets, projects, and opportunities. Okay, here's the thing. Projects and tickets are the same thing. Opportunities and tickets are different. The only thing that differentiates the tickets from projects is how things get built, not even necessarily where they get displayed or how they get displayed, because you can control that. That's configurable. But when you're dealing with projects for billing purposes, what's supposed to happen is that all the time under the individual child tickets, which are the project tasks, will get rolled up into the project, the parent ticket, and you'll bill from the parent ticket. Everything else about projects is specifically configurable. You can turn a ticket into a project. You can turn on milestones, you can turn on forecasting, and there's a lot of other things. I could be a little bit wrong about some of the functionality, but for the most part, it's almost exactly the same. From an opportunity perspective, it's completely different. Opportunities has a whole different area. And for example, to showcase that, if we were to go back and look at our ticket types, you'll notice that I don't have anything that's assigned to the use of opportunities. So if I search, there's nothing here. I got projects and I have tickets, but I have no opportunities. The reason is because Halo broke this out. And if I collapse my tickets and go down to sales, I'll see opportunity types, which is the use case of opportunities. Now I can come in here and I can grab a ticket type of, say, network request, and I can say, you know what, this is an opportunity, and I'm going to save it. And now notice it says opportunity type name instead of ticket type name. right? And if I go back to my ticket types and look for a network request, you'll see it's gone, right? But if I go back to my opportunity types down here, I will now have a fourth option of network requests, and you can see it's already there because I had it filtered. And so now it's a network, it's an opportunity type. I can come back here and I can flip this back over to tickets, and now it says ticket type name instead of opportunity type name. And now it will be gone from my list of sales ticket types because it's no longer a sales ticket type. It is a regular ticket type, which is up here, versus projects and tickets are together. So it's important to know that because there are going to be situations you're going to run into where the opportunity behaves differently, or a ticket functionality that you've expected to work one way in tickets works completely different with opportunities. And it's because the functionality that they have is actually different. Even though they're the same entity, they're in the same exact table, they're inside the faults table in the database, they're actually different behind the scenes. Let me just clarify that one more time. They're actually different in the middle of the scene. Front end, they're basically more or less the same kind of. The behavior changes based off what's on the backend configuration. The backend, the real backend, which is the database, they're exactly the same. But from the middleware perspective, like in the middle, whatever on Halo's code side, they are different. And so they behave differently and they're displayed differently. So with that being said, we were talking about areas. Let's go and look at the sales general settings and notice that we have a setting here that we can hide the default opportunity ticket area. If I turn that on, the opportunity section will disappear because there's only two areas that exist. And now I can go up to my tickets and areas over here, and I can build my own custom opportunities area if I want to. Notice my use case is showing opportunities versus tickets. And again, the difference is so that it can associate the entity of this area to the opportunity entities. And so therefore the behavior of the views and so on and so forth that we're going to talk about in a moment will all actually comply with the opportunities versus the tickets because we've associated it as an opportunity. So something important to keep in mind there when you are dealing with your custom areas and so on. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my opportunities default area again. We're going to turn that back on. And we are going to go dive into actually looking at an area and seeing how it's designed. When we're talking about anything, almost anything in Halo, you're going to run into something like a sequence or a precedence or something like that. And that will define when a entity will be used, or which entity will be used first, or what order it's going to be displayed in, or something like that. It's an order of operations, essentially, where the lower the number, the higher up the queue or the tier it is, the priority it is, or something like that. And so if we're going alphabetically, we're basically sorting by sequence with the lowest number first, in an ascending fashion. So we've got service desk and project. Service desk is sequence number 10, and projects is sequence number 50. If we open up service desk, we're going to go through some of these things here. The first thing to note is going back to that thing I said about relative terminology. And so when we're talking about the term ticket and tickets here, we are talking about the ticket and tickets within an area at this point. And so Halo is asking from you, when you build an area, what exactly is this area containing? Is it containing tickets? Is it containing projects? Is it containing project tasks? Maybe change requests? Maybe CRM records or whatever it is. And you have to define the entity name, plural and singular, so that Halo will know and can display to the users, the agents who are using it, what it is this area is containing. You define the use case. This just goes back to whether it's going to be a ticket or opportunity. Again, going back to terminology, this is the backend definition of the word ticket versus opportunity. And then you can choose an icon, and you can choose a view, filter profile, column profile, template group, ticket type, default ticket type, and ITIL ticket type, sorry, a default ticket type, and then whether or not you want to prompt for a service when you're creating a ticket. And then finally, the project view being enabled and whether you want to show the new ticket button. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of these settings a bit more later on. I'm just going through a high-level overview, what you can configure on the details tab. Let's look at the filters tab. This is where things start to get fun. An area is going to be a collection of tickets. And when I say tickets, I mean the general backend term of tickets, all the entities basically, whether it's opportunities or tickets. But it's going to be a collection of, maybe I should call them records from the tickets database that'll be displayed in one place. And so the filters tab will start building the criteria that is going to be used to collect those entities, whether they're tickets or opportunities, and display them into that area. This is one level of filtering that you can start designing. And so from here, we can say, well, I want to look by ITIL type equaling certain things, and I want to see where team is a certain thing. Here is a potential pitfall that happens here. If you are filtering for both ticket type and team, and you have the ability to associate a different ticket type to one of these teams, and those teams are not in any other areas, then those tickets become invisible, because we are basically pinning two different criteria. We're saying the ticket must be this ITIL type and must be on one of these teams in order for it to be displayed in this view. If you don't have any other way to view tickets outside of this criteria, then you now have a black hole where tickets can fall into and they will never be seen, because the area will only show tickets that fall within the criteria. Okay, so with that being said, I still like to associate different types of tickets to different teams, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. If we look at our permissions tab, this is just going to define which teams have the ability to see this area. This is one of those things that are dependent on permissions and will absolutely cache in your browser upon login in one of the cookies. And the only way to see those changes will be to log out and log back in. This is true only for people who are not making the change. If you're the agent making the change, you will see it almost real time, likely. You may still have to log in for certain situations, but 99.99% of the time, you should see those changes right away, because the cookie session will be updated real time when you make the change. It's going to be cached and it's going to update your cookie real time. Let's talk about how that works for a moment. There are a lot of settings inside of Halo, including your permissions, your role assignment, your custom fields, various configurations being set a certain way, that will be cached. And maybe cached is the wrong word, but it will be pulled and saved into a cookie session, or a session cookie. It'll be saved into your session cookie upon signing into Halo. And the only way to get a new one or to update that is to log out and log back in. And so you'll get changes where you'll get situations where you'll make a change and everything will look great to you. But your agents who have been in Halo for the last week or last few days or even the last 3 hours will not notice that change. You have placed a custom field, and now that custom field shows up as hashtags and question marks and the word custom field and ID number, and they have no idea what it is. It's because they haven't downloaded those changes into their cookies yet. And so upon logging out and logging in, they will be able to get that latest changes. Tab placement arrangements, things like that, personal preferences on their accounts. Those are all things that to log out and log in order to see those changes on where you will see those real time. As you saw, when I've changed my color, I was able to refresh and it was immediate, and so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, and we're actually going to make a new area just to showcase how it works. So I'm going to create one. This is one I like to create. It kind of gets in the way. It kind of acts a little funky, but I still like to have it. And I like to keep it in place because it does get useful. So we're going to go ahead and create a ticket area named mine. And I'm going to say this is sequence 1. It's going to be the very top of the list. And we're just going to say it's ticket and tickets. We don't really care what it's called. Use case will be tickets. Button icon, I like to use the asterisk, but it's completely up to you. There's hundreds, I don't actually know the real number, but there are a lot of icons that you can choose from. I like using the asterisk for this case when I'm using the mine. My default view is going to be my lists specifically. And the default list I'm going to choose is going to be mine unread. And then everything else I don't care about. Okay. Let's go ahead and save this. And now that I've created it, we'll see upon, oh, I need to create a filter. Ooh, okay, hold on. That was bad. Let's go ahead and create a filter here, and we're going to say the filter is going to be based off of the agent includes augment agent. Okay. There are other filters that you can include. You can also do team, like team lead view, where the team is includes teams I lead, right? And so therefore you can see all the teams that you lead essentially within your view. I'm going to do this mine, and I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's refresh and see if we get that area. Or if I have to do that log out and log in that I was just saying, that work right away upon signing in and signing out, or upon making the change. So I'm going to go ahead, and because I don't really want to sign out, and in fact, I don't even know if I have my password set. I'm just going to, yeah, I'm going to set my password actually, because I don't think I set my password yet. And so let's do that. There we go. We will generate a quick password here that I'm not going to have you guys see. And paste that, submit, log in. And we are going to save this password so I don't forget it. All right, let's log out and okay, now we're going to save that. All right, so remember I required 2FA under advanced settings, and I also said all people must register for 2FA. This screen is what you get when you need to register for 2FA. However, I can't close it. There is a workaround or a bad thing that can happen. Remember, this is a modern interface using a modern framework in the web, and so a lot of modern things are not really done in a way that is big picture thought out. And so if you're not actively programming for something, it will always react a certain way. So right now, the escape key is not handled in Halo. And so I can just hit the escape key and get rid of it. Right? It's not expecting someone to go hit that. The escape key to get out of a window is pretty common. That's built in everywhere, and Halo hasn't specifically prevented that from happening, and so I can just hit the escape key and get out of it. I'm going to show you that because I want to show you what you can do to actually log out if you want to, if you don't want to actually log out for real because you're tied, let's say, to single sign-on, and you don't want Microsoft 365 from signing out. So I'm just going to clear my cookies. Again, the way I got there is by hitting the padlock up here, go into cookies, and I'm just going to delete these two, remove and done, and then refresh, and it's going to say, boom, you need to log in again, which is fine. I'm happy doing that. I'm going to go ahead and sign in again. Actually, I have the credentials saved now. I forgot. I'm just going to go ahead and hit that and log in. And then it's going to prompt me again for 2FA because I haven't set it up yet. And so now I'm just going to go configure my 2FA. Actually, I'm going to do that outside of the screen share. I'll get my 2FA secret key. And let's do this real quick. The other way that you can get around the screen if you don't want to set it up right now is by simply by just hitting the refresh key. And so if I go ahead and just refresh this window, you'll see that it won't show up again. Yeah, and so now I've got 2FA signed in, set up, and I can go ahead and log out, and I can sign back in, log in, and set up my 2FA and submit. Sweet. All right. We've got a few more things to talk about, and this video is done. It's been a long video. My voice is starting to hurt. Yeah, let's see how much longer it takes. So we've got now our mine area is right up front. Notice that because we're in this layout profile, it actually didn't change because it's all the way down here, it's hidden. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to actually come back here. I'm going to go back to advanced and I'm going to change my default layout to actually display that screen layout. And you know what? I wasn't paying attention. I did try to check for it real quick, but I wasn't really looking for it to know if I had to log out for real or if it just was showing collapsed and I just missed it. But we're going to come here and we're going to find the mine, and I'm going to change this to be show on menu. And I'm going to save that, and it's going to pop up. Well, it should have popped up all the way on top. I'm just going to put that all the way up, and we're going to put it below the home button. And so now it'll be right here. Okay. And so what this is going to show me is I'm going to click mine, and it's going to bring me to a set of lists. The lists don't exist yet, which is good because that's the next thing I want to talk about. So the mine gives me my view of tickets that I should be able to see. I'm going to go ahead and let's flip over to the service desk area. Now let's talk about this view that I mentioned before, tickets by team. One of the settings that I chose when building the area was based off of which default view do you want to see first, right? So that was the default view here, and I had chosen my lists. If we were to look at this ticket area, the service desk area, and we were to click on a view selection, we can choose which view we want to use. All right, I'm not going to go through all of them right now in this video. You can go through them yourselves. They're pretty self-explanatory. The My Lists is the most important one that I want to talk about. And notice we have a series of lists here that exist that we can right-click and edit if we want to. The list will be a name. It will tell me where I'm using it. A grouping if I'm going to have a group. And then sequence, again, we're going to know what that is now. List visibility, show counts and tree view. Column profile, we're going to talk about that in a moment. And then the list display type. The display type of a list can be locked to a specific type of view, which we'll talk about in a moment. Or you can just use the default, which will not lock it and allow an agent to navigate between the different types. And then finally, you can have the option to show in the by team view if you want to. Let's go ahead and cancel this out. And let's flip over back to the by team view. And you'll notice that outside of the teams, we still have a few other items here. And these are just lists. I cannot right click on them to change them, but they are lists that are visible in the by team view. So if I go back and look at the, first let's look at the name of the open problems is the name of the list. And if I go back to my list, we'll see that we should have a open problems list, which is the exact same thing. The way that's done is by looking at the edit list, and you'll see that shown by team view is selected, and you have the option of choosing a specific team for it to show under. Okay. Finally, if we look at the filters tab, we have the ability to set our criteria regarding which tickets will fall into this list. It's a second layer of filtering. Technically, really, it's a third layer of filtering that sits underneath the areas filter. Why do I call it a third layer? Because there's something else called a filter profile. The filter profile is a different set of filters that will be used to look at tickets. And you can see that this list specifically is locked to the filter profile of including SLA hold. Let's go ahead and cancel. And let's take a look at what that is exactly. I'm going to flip back over to the tickets by team view. And notice underneath that I have a filter or focus tree menu is what it's called if I hover over it. It's a filter profile selection. And I have that here as well as here. So I can change this to different filter profiles, and notice it changes up here. I can change this to closed tickets, where I only have one closed ticket, that's a mirror. I can change it to all tickets, where I can see all my open and closed tickets together. And I can flip between the different, again, what's called filter profiles to specifically narrow down rapidly which tickets I'm looking at, or like quick view filters, or and so on and so forth. If I were to right click on here, I have the ability to edit that filter profile. And again, you can see it's literally just a use case, a profile name, and then the criteria that you're specifying in order to create that filter, which is the second layer of filtering. So you've got the areas filter, which is the very top level or very bottom level, whichever one you want to look at it, whichever way you want to look at it. And then you've got the list view, which if you're looking at a list, it's the very, very last or lowest filtering setting. And then in between that, you've got the filter profile, which is sitting between the area and the list. You've got 3 different ways to create these specific set of filters to pull tickets a very particular way that you need. Let's go ahead and create a list for the mine area. Okay, so we're going to go to configuration and we're going to go to tickets, I believe. And then from there, we'll go to views and we're going to go and create a group first. This group, I'm just going to call it mine. My use case, again, is going to be tickets and averages, right? We're going to see this over and over again. And our sequence, I'm going to put this at 5. I want this to be above everything else. And we're going to go ahead and back out. And so we've got 5, 10, 20, 30. If I sort by sequence number, you see that mine is on top. Back up 1 level. And I'm going to go look at my configure lists. And I'm going to now create a my open tickets option. Okay. And so now I'm going to go and take the use case and I'm going to assign it to mine only. And the group is going to be in mine. Okay. Sequence and list, I'll say this is 5. This will be the very first one. List visibility will be all agents. Now anyone can see it. I'm going to show counts and trade view. And my column profile, I'm going to leave alone. We'll talk about that in a moment. The list display type we'll also talk about. I'm going to leave that as display. I'm going to let myself change what view I'm looking at. And then my filters, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say open tickets only. I'm actually going to rename this to say my actionable tickets. Actionable tickets. And I'm going to say my criteria is open tickets where my agent includes logged in agent. Now I don't really have to specify that necessarily because I'm already doing the filter on the area side. Theoretically speaking, I should just be able to do this. Let's see how this works. And we're going to go back to, I'll open it back to my new tab here and I'll do this one and we'll refresh this tab so that it's updated and then we'll go to the mine area. And so now we should see I've got 8 actionable tickets that are assigned to me. Right, and it's based off the incident, project task, it doesn't matter. This is any of the tickets, not the opportunities. This is the actual underlying entity of a ticket, which includes project tasks, and anything else. Okay? Other than opportunities. I just keep saying that. And the reason why that works is because I'm looking at ones in here that are open, and I'm looking at ones here that are assigned to me. Okay, so that's what I mean by double filtering in order to make this work. We can go ahead and create additional filters around that. We can start filtering down by tickets and projects and so on and so forth. I can say where a ticket type is incident and my projects and my project tasks. And so I can literally build out sets of groups within the mine area to make it display how I want. All right, we've got 2 more things to cover before this first intro video. This is just the intro video is finished. And the idea again was to give you a walk around the Halo design and so that you can navigate and understand the Halo terminology and find your way through it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the display type that we're looking at, or as it's called in the system, the default, you know what? I don't even know if it's here. It's probably, where was it? It's in here. Yeah, the display type. That's what I was talking about. So the way you're looking at tickets right now is in a table view. And you can change that up here on the 3 dots in the top right corner by flipping between tile view, Kanban view, calendar view, even Gantt view, which you have split between either task or agent. Or we can go back to the table view, which is the one that we were in by default. And so those are the different views that you have, the different ways of displaying those tickets on the screen. And you can have my actual tickets and then another list that's just a clone that's locked to calendar. So I can come back in here and I'm going to say, you know what, we're going to build another list. We're going to say my actionable tickets calendar. And maybe it's too long, so we're just going to say actionable tickets calendar. And here we'll do mine again, and we'll set the group under mine, and we'll say this is now 15. And we are going to lock this to calendar target date view. Okay. Notice target date In order for a ticket to be populated on the calendar, the target date needs to be set. If you have a start date and target date set, the ticket will span from the start date until the target date. If you only have the target date set, it will just show up on a date that it's set. We're going to go ahead and not show this by team view because we don't care. And our only filter is going to be open tickets, not including SLA hold. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. It's basically the exact same list as before. If I refresh, we will now have a second list, right? So it's a little bit long. We may just want to say actionable calendar. And now we can see it's locked immediately to that calendar. I can change this however I want. I cannot change this necessarily to anything. It's literally just a calendar view. Okay. That is the display types. Now let's talk about the column profiles. This is still part of the second to last thing we need to talk about. If I come up here and I look at my edit columns, I have the ability to define or pick a column profile. A column profile allows us to define which columns will be visible at what point in time. So I can come up here and edit the default columns, and I can add any field on a ticket. And when I say ticket, I mean a ticket or opportunity. Any field that exists on a ticket can also be added into a ticket type, into a column profile. There's a caveat for that. When I say any field, I really mean any custom field that you create and most of the system fields. There are probably going to be some system fields you cannot add, but they're always looking for those and adding them in over time. Aside from that, when we define a column profile, we can also define its use case, its list visibility, right? So is it going to be personal or specific to a team or agent? And then you can also define the design of the tiles as well as the design of the Kanban card layout. And so you saw when I switched between the different display types of a Kanban or a tile, you can actually change what gets displayed on those cards. And you can also do raw HTML in here. And again, just like we can add any column we want from any field, for the most part, that same thing exists here. I can add in any of these fields into the Kanban card view and into the tile layout view as well. And that's basically it for column profiles. Let's go ahead and cancel this. And let's look at, for example, the HR view and then use it. All right, and so now I'm looking at a specific ticket type, a specific column profile for HR view that displays the tickets in a very specific way that help desk probably can't use, but HR doesn't need to see all the other things that the service desk needs to see. For example, start date and target date and type of incident or so on and so forth. The column profile can be set by default on the list. So we can say when looking at a list, we want a column profile to be used specifically. We lock it in, which means that it can't be changed if we lock it in here. Or we can do it on the area. And again, if we do it here, it can't be changed once we set it here. So with that being said, like you can already start to see as an admin the different ways that you can build Halo out so that the usability and functionality from the agent's perspective, again, when I say agent, I mean your internal MSP employees, from the agent perspective, exactly what they need in order to do the work that they need to do. That is basically it as far as an overview of the platform. The next and final thing we're going to talk about on this call, on this recording, is the actual ticket screen itself. There are going to be some slight nuances in the ticket screen, and we're going to try to cover those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a ticket, and we're going to see some things here. Number one, we have 3 essential panes of a ticket. We've got the main pane, which is from here all the way up to this section right here. This main pane contains tabs of the ticket, which starts down here, where we can go and see the different details of a ticket. We got AI insights, we have billing, and we've got progress, where progress will be a record of every action that has been performed on a ticket. Okay. Inside of the progress, we have the ability to collapse all actions or expand them all or jump to the end. We have the ability under individual actions to like, love, laugh, surprise, sad, and angry, or none. So I can love this, or I can none it. And this has no functionality right now. It is one of those advanced settings that we turned on, allowing agents to react to tickets. But other than that, it's just other than just internally being able to view and see that and potentially report on it, there's no real functionality there. And then finally, we have the ability to perform other actions or investigate the specific action that's been performed here. Up on the top of the ticket, we have different buttons. These are the actual actions that you can do. So again, down here are the actions that have happened under the progress tab. These are the actions that you can perform. And every action has an outcome. So if I, for example, email the user, and then I go ahead and put in an email, I'm going to turn the email off for right now. We're going to go back and cover this in detail later on, so don't worry too much about what I'm clicking. I'm just showing you the layouts, which is the most important part. And let's go ahead and save, so to speak, this. And now we can see an additional action that's here where the outcome was email user, the status changed to with user, and so on and so forth. Other than the actions that are on top, we have the ticket ID, which is over here. We've got the workflow step it's currently in, or technically this is the stage of the workflow that it's in. And then the subject or summary of the ticket is up here, which again, we can just click into to change by accident, which we don't mean to, and it will absolutely change it because there's no save or edit button. Finally, on the actual panes themselves, we've got our ticket details, which is in the middle one. Ticket details contains the SLA, the priority, the information about the ticket, which you can see is in the section called ticket information, and then all the different various fields that may exist on that ticket. And again, notice that these are highlighting as I click into them. Potentially, I can change them almost just by clicking. If I go to impact and I say this is a single user and urgency is high, it will change that real time. And now, boom, I've just matched a rule, which we'll talk about later on. On this pane here, we've got the end user and client details. We also have the related assets and so on. Other open tickets. We can change the other open tickets view to be user, site, and client. Okay, and you'll see this entity kind of context menu exists throughout the system. You may have seen it already. I forgot to mention it when looking at the screen layout profiles. We swapped between the client and navigation menu entity, and so you'll see that kind of drop down exists throughout the system, and you'll know that that's what it's for. There's going to be other entities that you can flip between to make your life easier, hopefully. With that being said, the last part about these two panes is that they do collapse. If I were to drag my screen to be a little bit smaller, you'll see the two panes collapse where the end user client details are on top and the ticket details are on the bottom. If I were to go just a little bit smaller, they actually collapse into a details tab over here. And again, the same kind of layout exists. All right, if I expand that all the way back out again, you'll see it blow back out. Now I can collapse them by using this button, which will just put them into the details tab, or I can expand them back out by hitting this button up here, which will show them again. The last and final part of the ticket screen is going to be these buttons up here. Here we can pop it out to a new window. We can follow the ticket or add followers to a ticket. We can share the ticket out easily by just grabbing this copy link button and pasting that link directly out. Or we can see, and again, this has to be enabled, which contracts are visible on which contracts this client has and how much time went against it from this ticket. Finally, we've got the three dot buttons, which you don't want to neglect. You see them here, you see them here, you may see them over here if we have too many actions. They're basically an expansion menu. And inside the expansion menu, you have the ability to do other actions on the ticket. Again, don't get too hung up on the various things that you can do on the ticket. The idea of this video specifically is to go through the high-level overview, the layout of Halo, and understanding the design so that you can start to think about how you would build this and navigate your way around Halo as an admin. And the most important thing to remember is, number one, turn on config change tracking. Number 2, disable the permanent deletion of tickets. And number 3, if there's no save button, it is saving it in real time. If there's no edit button, it's saving it in real time. And if there is an edit button, there is a corresponding save button as well. I hope this was helpful. I hope this is good for you. And again, I want to thank Florian from Bristol IT one more time for literally sponsoring me, paying me to do these videos, and paying me for my time for this. And we will try to keep a bi-weekly cadence at the very latest, where we go through the various different areas and start talking about setting up Halo from scratch. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.